Are you looking for a tutorial on how to restring your guitar? Then you've come to the right place. Today I have a vintage Fender F25, but I have a few tools that you might need. It might make your life a whole lot easier. Definitely has made my life a whole lot easier. I want to start with a number 2 pencil. I have a manual string winder. I have some lemon oil, support for the guitar neck, keeping my guitar steady as I work on it. This handy dandy string winder, it is motorized. Basically, you press up to tighten the strings, you press down to loosen the strings. That goes for both sides of the headstock. It is only 1 speed, so it's not varied. I can't put less pressure on it and it goes slow, or more pressure and it goes high. Keep in mind, if you do use something like this and it's not varied speed, that you be careful when it gets a little tight. I do have a pack of Didarios. We're gonna try these out. I'm gonna grab the saddle pin, and in the saddle pin, you'll notice that there is a slight hollowing out. What you want is to put the string in the saddle hole and then have it slide all the way up the slat of the saddle pin and get caught in the saddle pin. So I put the string in, put the saddle pin down into the saddle pin, and then I pull the string up. You want to repeat that for all the strings. Now what I'll do is I'll take all my strings off at once and I will put them all back into the saddles one by one. What I love about the Dario strings is that they clearly label each string, so it's easy to know which string to put in the saddle, even though you see right here, I do mess up and mix up the B and the high E string. And what I usually do is I separate all the strings out so that I can work with each one by one. And to set myself up, I'll start working on the low E string. I'll run it through the first spoke, and I'll pull it all the way through until I can't go any further. Make sure it's on the saddle. I need to count up 2 spokes, so 1, 2. Now it's perfectly normal for beginners to start, and they make their slack 2 spokes in length. As you get more comfortable with doing this, you want to move this down to 1.5 or 1 spokes for your slack. The reason why I do this is because I want enough string to wrap around the first spoke. After I cut it where it's up 2 spokes, I bring it back and I make sure that the string just barely misses the next spoke. I will go ahead and place my finger down on the string. I'll grab my handy dandy tool, make sure that you press the up button. I'll put it on my tuning key and I'll start to turn. Make sure that when you put your finger down, it is on the nut. And make sure it's down tight. My goal with doing it this way is that I'm trying to create this knot where it's like I have locking tuners on my acoustic guitar. However, I'm doing this and I'm getting this effect without having to actually install locking tuners. So as I wind the string, I make sure that the string that I'm holding at the nut has enough tension by adding my other finger that when I wrap the excess string around, I can bend it up, and it's going to create this natural knot that the more that I tighten the rest of the string and the spoke moves counterclockwise, it's going to create a natural force holding that excess string into the slot of your tuning peg. As I continue to tighten the string, I make sure that as the tension gets tighter, I lift my fingers out from underneath, but I don't tighten it all the way where I am actually putting the string in tune. So I lift it up off of the nut and I take my number 2 pencil and I write on the inside of the slot of the low E string. What this does is that it provides a certain type of lubrication for the string, and it helps with the vibration of the strings. As I've zoomed in a little bit more, you can see the knot that I've created on the spoke. It basically keeps the string in place as you're playing. You will have no type of slippage. And I know that there's a lot of extra slack, but that should not impede your playing at all. I don't recommend that you tighten the string up and put it in tune. While you're changing your strings, you want to keep them just a tad bit loose because by the time you get down to the high E string, they're all going to be out of tune anyway. So make sure that they're loose. But as you'll see, I'll repeat the steps for the remaining strings, starting with the A string, and I'll work my way all the way up to the high E string. You'll notice that the top spokes for the D string and the G string, there are no spokes afterwards, so you have to guesstimate just how long the slack needs to be, but you'll continue on doing the same steps that I showed for the E string. As I start to work on the thinner strings, the G, the B, and the high E, I can't recommend the string winder enough. It has reduced the time that it takes for me to change my strings immensely. And if you look in the description, I will have a link there. It's not that expensive, but I highly recommend it. This is an activity that used to take me about 20 to 30 minutes to do, and it basically reduced it down to 5 to 10 minutes. I want you to understand that these strings are also thinner, so they are a little bit more fragile. So make sure that you are putting the proper tension on them so that they don't break. The last thing that you want for a $20 pair of strings is that you get down to the high E string and it breaks. Luckily, they do sell single strings, so just keep that in mind. And finally, I'm coming down into home stretch with the high E string. I'm making sure I have enough slack on the end where I clip, and I go ahead and use my tool to tighten it down. This one caused me a little bit of trouble because the string bends so sharp, but I was still able to complete the pattern that I did for the rest of the strings. So I wanted to get a view to show you what the string should look like, at least on this side. See how the excess goes in between the two rows of string that we have here? When we tighten this down, it actually forms a knot, then it keeps this string from slipping. So I'm going to tighten these down. You won't be able to see it on this side, but basically tightening the string creates a locking maneuver. Now, I'm just going to tune it, make sure it's playable. So the last thing is that as you're tuning, don't be surprised if you're going to have to tune it multiple times. These are brand new strings, so they aren't used to the tension of being on a guitar. So keep that in mind. There are multiple techniques that I use to make sure my strings are broken in pretty easily and pretty quickly. But don't be surprised if you have to tune it up several times within the first couple days or couple weeks. I like to do this by hand and using the Guitar Tuna app on my iPhone. So one thing I did as I'm doing this, I forgot to turn the automatic string winder off, but there is a feature on it that as you pluck the strings, it will tighten or loosen the strings accordingly. So that is an added feature, even though I didn't showcase that here, but it definitely was working as I was tuning up my strings. As we wrap up with the last two strings, I will say this. How often you change your strings is up to you. That is of varying opinion. Some people say 6 to 8 weeks. Some people say even less than that. Just to give you perspective, I perform 3 times a week with typically the same guitars. I usually wait until they actually sound super dull before I actually change my strings. So I hope that this tutorial was useful for you. I am restrung. I am in tune. One thing to note, if you are a beginner, that the strings, they need to be stretched out. So what I usually do is I count my dots. I get up to the 7th fret, and I'll usually stretch the string out as far as I can take it. Hold it for about 10 seconds, and I'll repeat the process for each string. Now, a warning to this, after you do it, it will be out of tune, so you're going to have to retune the strings. Usually takes me a couple weeks for my strings to get fully stretched out, and I won't have to tune the guitar as much, but like I said, this is something that you should get into a practice of doing. Definitely don't want you to be playing and trying to impress people when your guitar won't stay in tune, right? So let me go ahead and retune this and we can get on out of here. The other thing to note is that if you are tightening and you notice that your bridge pins are coming out, just go ahead and give it a little tap and it'll go back in where it needs to be. I'm liking these. I think I'm going to start using these instead of the elixirs.